Is Street Fighter 6 eating your inputs and giving you commands you did not intend? The community is going crazy about this, and we're going to go over what's happening and why it's happening.
How did I get that? Whoa!
There was a tweet that went out from Speed Kicks on Twitter that said, I ate so many Sonic Boom counter hit combos, I had to see what's happening. Drive Rush Screen Freeze turns parry input, even using the macro, into medium kick. Hope they fix this. In the video, he shows Juri trying to parry during Kail's Drive Rush, but something weird happens. During the flash for Drive Rush, Juri tries to parry, but instead of getting parry, she gets medium kick. So I went into the training room and I wanted to test this for myself. Let's set the dummy up to do a Drive Rush and see if I can parry. As we see here, during the screen freeze, if we hit parry during the freeze, we do not get parry. We get medium kick. Why is this happening? Before we diagnose the problem, we have to look at other inputs to make sure the game is not eating those inputs as well, because right now, it's eating the parry input. So let's try throw in slow motion. Seems to be working fine. Let's try it again. No problems. Let's try drive impact. No problems. Let's try parry just to be sure I have the right timing. Yes, we do. It's just when Juri starts to run. That's the timing of it. Because that's when the freeze starts. So other inputs are working. It's just parry. This is just demonstration. I tried this out on stream yesterday at twitch.tv/BigNastyKail. And after stream, I tried this out for about 2 hours. I tested all the inputs that I could. And the only one that gets eaten during Drive Rush Freeze is parry. So let's look at some of the advice that you might give or some of the advice that you might get to try to counteract this. So I set a button just for medium punch and medium kick, because one of the things that people say is that if you use the macro button, this doesn't happen. The theory is that you're not getting a clean input for the parry like that. Instead, you're getting a plink. So in theory, medium punch is coming out first and then the parry is going to come out. But this wouldn't explain why this happens either, because you're not getting medium punch, you're getting medium kick. But let's test it out. I'm going to use my dedicated parry button to see what happens. We still get medium kick. Even though I'm using the dedicated parry button, medium kick still comes out. During the Drive Rush screen freeze, we've tested a few things. One, parry, which does not give us parry. We've tested DI, DPs, we've tested throws. All of those things still come out. Parry doesn't come out during screen freeze. This tells me that parry is actually just not a viable command while the screen is frozen from Drive Rush. It's not that you can't press medium punch and medium kick to get parry. It's that parry, as a mechanic, is not available during screen freeze. If we were to put ourselves in burnout and hit the parry button, it acts the same exact way, because parry is not a viable command during burnout. It gets even deeper. If I go over to modern, let's see what happens then. Under modern controls, you have a dedicated parry button, meaning that it doesn't mimic medium punch, medium kick. Instead, if you look, it just gives you the drive parry input. What happens during the screen freeze if the button you press is dedicated solely to the mechanic of drive impact and not medium punch plus medium kick? Nothing comes out at all. The mechanic drive parry is just invalid during the screen freeze. If you see her turn green in that frame, you hit drive parry, it just does not come out at all. It's not that your inputs are getting eaten per se. It's that your inputs are not being processed in the way that you expect them to. Meaning, you're trying to drive parry at a time that the game is saying drive parry is invalid. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm not saying that this is right. This might be a bug. This might be intended. But the way the game works right now, if you input a parry during the Drive Rush freeze, the game renders that input invalid and will default to something else. And this makes sense why people are getting counter hit, because if you're holding back and doing drive parry, you still get medium kick. And it's the same thing during the screen freeze. So the advice of just holding back and hitting parry doesn't work, because it's giving you an attack instead, because you cannot parry during the screen freeze. Let's look at another situation, this time from Prophet. Oh look, another person in the comments saying to hold back while tapping parry. Please help me understand. This happened like 5 times during this 1 first to 2. Why am I getting counter hit when I'm pressing parry? This happens to me way too often for me to brush off. And if we look at the video here, he gets counter hit for trying to hit parry. He slows it down in the replay viewer. And at this point, he goes to parry and gets counter hit. Why did his parry not come out? I'm going to set Cammy up to do the exact same thing, and I'm going to try to parry and see what happens. Well, there we go. To explain why this happens, we have to go over the buffer window. If you look at this little square here, this shows you the buffer window and the timing for it. This shows Jury's recovery in that red bar going all the way to the end of the bar. However, there's a yellow line there representing the buffer window, meaning we can do the input a little bit early and the game will still give us the input on the first possible command after the recovery. It's an input leeway that if you do an input a little bit early, the game will still give you the input as if you did it perfectly timed. The buffer window does not apply to parries in this game. Parries in this game, you cannot buffer. I'm going to show you what I mean. Let's set Cammy back up to do the same thing again. And this time in slow motion, I'm going to input parry during the buffer window and look what happens. I get hit. But there's a very important distinction. I get counter hit. This is not that I let go of parry too early and got punish countered. I got counter hit, meaning I got hit by something starting up. So if you throw a parry, you get a punish counter because you're punishing the recovery of the move. And you could block instantly on a parry. It doesn't matter if it's a few frames or not. You're able to block right after. So that doesn't make sense either. Spin knuckle into crouching light punch is a very, very tight gap. So let's make that gap a little bit bigger, shall we? Let's make that gap even bigger with this string here. This is not frame tight, so let's see what happens. I start up with crouching medium kick, or if I stand, I get medium kick also, but I hit parry. I hit the parry macro. My conclusion is this. Since you cannot buffer parry, when the buffer window closes, it goes, they tried to parry, but that's invalid, so give them medium kick. So when people say to hold back and hold the parry button down, that is absolutely correct. Because since you can't buffer parry, when the buffer window expires, you're still holding parry, which is viable. But you can't tap, let go, and then have that buffer to parry. Since you can't do that, it defaults to a strike. Before we go forward, let's recap. You cannot use parry during the screen freeze for drive rush. The mechanic itself, not the button presses, is not possible during the screen freeze of drive rush. If you try to do it, it treats it as two separate inputs of medium punch, medium kick, which the medium kick is dominant. And if you use modern, there is no input at all since you're not mimicking buttons, you're actually using the mechanic as a button. Parry is not a bufferable mechanic, meaning if you are not holding parry on the first frame or pressing parry on the first frame, if you press parry during the buffer window and let go, the game will default to not using parry at all and treat it as a normal or even a special. If you are in a block string and you try to buffer parry, you will not get parry at all and the game will give you a normal. Also, if you were to parry while doing a special move, you will get the special move instead because parry is not a viable input. And there's one last instance, and that's going to be during a drive rush cancel. This happens all the time. You go to block a drive rush and you go to mash and you get hit and you're like, what the hell? So you even check the inputs. And you look at the inputs and you're like forward, down, down, forward, and then the punch, and I didn't get it. This is a completely viable DP input. Why did it not come out? Drive rush must have eaten my command. Yes, but also no. I can mash all day. It just won't come out. And I'm doing the shortcut to mash. It just won't come out during the screen freeze. But the thing about it, this is not new. This happens in all Street Fighter games. Think about supers, ultras, critical arts. It's the same thing. So any command during the screen flash won't come out. DI, throw, nothing, right? Parry, definitely not, right? But even if you input a command for like DP, forward, down, down, forward, during the screen flash and press punch after the screen flash, it won't come out. If I want to input critical art here, I have all the time in the world to do so, but it's the buffer window that's screwing me up because of the screen flash. Let's look at the action timing meter, right? That red bar above my head. If you look at the bar, instead of it going all the way down, it actually freezes. And I think that's what screws up our timing. I think this is because the reaction is when we want to interrupt something to input it during the medium kick. And most of us can do this, right? If we look at the action meter, when I input CA, I'm in the buffer window. It's because I know the timing of the buffered window and when I'm out of block stun. This is just like an instinctual thing. And it's the same thing for DPs. It's the same thing for a lot of stuff, right? We just have a certain internal timing of when that is. So let's go back to the drive rush situation. The bar freezes. So our natural timing of trying to input the DP, we're not in the buffer window anymore, and we're doing it too early. Case in point, So let's look at the hypothesis again, that the screen freeze is eating our inputs. It's not that it's eating our inputs, it's that it's pushing the buffer window back. And if we input during it, it throws off our timing and we're not in the buffer window. So let me show you. I'm going to try to DP here in a timing that feels right. But if you look, I'm DPing during a time where I'm not in the buffer window. And if we try to do a super really slow, as long as we're in the buffer window, it works fine, even if I start to input during the screen freeze. DPs are the same thing. As long as you input and you execute the move by hitting the punch buttons after the buffer window, it works fine. But naturally, this is not the timing that we want to do, and we get hit trying to do it outside of the buffer window. But if we do it slower and do it while the buffer window is active, it works absolutely fine. This is easy for me to say while in slow motion. However, with practice, this is something that we can adjust and not do it the moment we see the low forward, because that's what will happen. So does the game eat your parry inputs? Yes, like actually. Like parry is just not a viable command while the screen is frozen. Is the game eating DP commands? Is it eating super commands? Is it eating CAs? Absolutely not. I say this with the most respect and understanding of your frustration and my frustrations, because this happens to me too. Sometimes you're not inputting commands in the timing or the way Street Fighter 6 wants you to do it. Should it be that way? Well, that's debatable, and we could talk about that. But if you're saying that the game is absolutely eating all of your inputs, it's kind of cap. And parry being not viable during the drive rush screen freeze, that might be a bug. Or if it's working as intended, we might just need to work around that. Perfect parry is meant to be a skillful device that you do frame perfect or the frame before. So you can't buffer that, and the game makes parry invalid during the buffer window. But should your parry input be completely negated if you do it during the buffer window and let go? I think that's debatable. I think the whole point is that you're supposed to time it perfectly. And that's all I have on the topic. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments section below. Do you think I'm capping? Do you think I'm coping? Do you think I'm on point? Let me know. Make sure to hit the like button if you enjoyed the video and subscribe to the channel if you want more Street Fighter 6 videos. On screen is a video that YouTube thinks that you will enjoy. So hopefully I'll see you over in the next one. Have a good one. Tell your loved ones you love them, and I'll see you guys soon.